Okay, so welcome back. Now that we have discussed the inverse property and we know how to handle the trig functions with the inverse trig functions and with the right triangle, and we know how to compose them. Now let's talk about composing a trig function with a different trig function. Okay, so for example, if I look at this right triangle, so I've got theta and then I've got the complement pi over 2 minus theta, okay, and then I've got a, b, and c. So if I look at a particular function, so let's talk about cosine, right? So let's take cosine theta, and which is what? It's a over c, right? Now I know that that is also equal to what? Sine of the complement, right? Remember the cofunctions, right? So I know that cosine theta, which is equal to this, is equal to sine of the complement, which would be pi over 2 minus theta, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means that if I take sine inverse of cosine theta, that's going to be the same, right? That's going to be equal to what? Sine inverse of sine of pi over 2 minus theta, which then I can use the inverse property and I get pi over 2 minus theta. Now be careful here. What is the restricted domain that we have to use? Well, here it has to be 0 to pi. Okay, so as long as theta is in the domain, right, 0 to pi, then we're good. But if it's not, then we have to find an angle, right, that this is equal to, right? So we have to find another angle that gives us the same result, and we'll have to replace it with that. And then what we have to do is once we find that angle, then we subtract that angle from pi over 2, okay? And likewise, if I'm dealing with sine, right, so if I have sine of theta equals what? B over c, which is equal to what? It's going to be cosine of pi over 2 minus theta. Now in this case, the domain that we're looking at is negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So that's the restricted domain. Okay, now, as long as theta is within that domain, then all we have to do is we could take cosine inverse, right? Cosine inverse of sine theta, which is equal to cosine inverse of cosine of pi over 2 minus theta is going to give me pi over 2 minus theta. And then again, if theta is not in the domain, then we have to find an angle that gives us the same result, right? And then we have to subtract that theta from pi over 2. And that's it. We'll do an example. Have a good day.